Right, so I'll give me a 5 second countdown. Hello and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for another segment of the Voices of Adventist Musician. We thank each of you for taking time out of your schedule to be with us on today. I would like to thank all of our guests for joining us today. How is everyone doing?
Doing
Doing
good.
well.
Doing
Blessed,
well.
excited. So glad to be here. Happy Sabbath, everyone.
Okay, perfect. So glad to have you all with us as we are going to be speaking about the conversation of money. Money, money, money in the Adventist church and musicians. So we're here to discuss this with a very able and talented panel today. So before we get started, let's do this, Nerva. Let's have each of our guests to give us a brief introduction of themselves. Tell us who you are, where you're from, and a little background of your services as a musician in church ministry. Can we start with Sister Deanne?
Okay. My name is Deanne Brewer. I presently live in the San Francisco, Oakland Bay Area of California. I have been here at least over 20 years now. But being a pastor's daughter, I've had the privilege of living in so many different places. Um, I presently, and I just thank God for the musical experience that I was blessed to have growing up in the Adventist school systems and having gone to Oakwood. I sang in the Aeolians. And after I left and graduated from Oakwood, I sang for a short while with the Moses Hogan Chorale in New Orleans. And
I
and some
sang
other,
for a short while.
I'm hearing my feedback. I also, because of my singing abilities and also musical abilities, I've had the privilege of playing for several churches. So I have played for churches from AME um, all the way to Pentecostal. So I feel that I can do it all. So I've been blessed to have served in so many different churches. And so I think I have a vast of our music in the Adventist church and then in other churches as well because of my experience.
All right.
So,
Sister Linda. I think Thomas is off camera.
okay. All right. I'm Linda Hodges. I am from Washington, D.C. I currently live in Maryland, in Upper Marlboro. And my experience has been in singing. Um, I guess the Lord told me that it was not my gift to play, except for vocal cords. So over the years, from school to in Oakwood College, I sang in the choir, Oakwood College choir. And I actually sang alto in the Oakwood College choir. And I'm now first soprano because I was a lazy soprano. I didn't know it.
Are you one of those?
I admit it. I admit it. And by the time I got out of Oakwood, I was singing soprano and found that it is actually my most uh, comfortable spot is singing soprano. But my alto and tenor is still there. So I sing just about everything with everybody. Right now, I'm singing with Patrick Lundy and the Ministers of Music, if you've ever heard of them. I've been with them since 2013. The new recording, I'm actually leading one of the songs. Um, and I also sing for two Catholic churches. I'm sorry, three Catholic churches on Sunday and on Sabbath. I'm one of the lead praise and worship uh, leaders and worship leader at First Seventh Day Adventist Church in DC. Capitol Hill in DC is my home church. And if you know anything about Capitol Hill, we are known for our music. And that is because my father, Leonard Hodges, was the head elder of Capitol Hill, one of the charter members from the late 70s, the early 70s, I'm sorry, when we got started, until sometime in the 2000s. I can't remember right now when he stopped. But his his real sticking point with Capitol Hill was to always have music. So I grew up with quartets. He's had a quartet called the Advent Four, and I've been part of music. Music has been part of my life all my life, and I feel blessed to have the opportunity to sing every single week. And whether I get paid or not, I really know that this is what God intended for me to do. And I'm just glad to be here with you all. And thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Well, it's certainly good to have you, Brother Cameron.
You can call me Brother Paul. Everybody
Brother Paul.
who's family to me, they call me Brother Paul. But
All
there's so
right.
many Pauls, you got to add the last name of Cameron. I'm thrilled and honored to be here today. First of all, thank you for the invite. And Capitol Hill, I believe he now has a church. I'm trying to remember his name. Can't remember his name. Husband and wife who handles funerals and
Oh, Michael and Zara Cox.
Cox. Yes, tell him Brother Paul, his brother from another
I
mother,
will.
says hi.
I will.
And my oldest son, PJ, used to be with you all, he and Phaedra, when they were at Capitol Hill ministering for you all. I am Brother Paul from Hartford, Connecticut, originally from New York, and still love it, if you will. And I have the joy of being part of Faith Center Adventist Church. And I have served in music ministry now since 1980. So I've been doing it for about 44 years. I have the joy of playing for four churches currently, and three of them on Sundays. It sounds like someone else's schedule that's on the panel, as well as on Sabbath. And I absolutely love it. I also am a music teacher at three of our Adventist schools here in Northeastern, as well as a public school here in Connecticut. My expertise, I love to play. I can play piano, organ, pipe organ. I also enjoy teaching. I also love going to helping churches that are struggling and to help them build and grow and do what God has called them to do. I also have a passion for musicians who sing and play, who needs to understand that you can survive financially in this Adventist climate. Just got to know what to say, who to say, what to do. Turn it over to you.
Yes, sir. Maestro himself.
Thank you, Doctor Nerve. Oh, I'm smiling because I think it's quite an honor to to be invited to sit on this on this panel. It, it's a blessing to be here. I'm originally from Haiti, although I've been in the US for the last 43 years. So I've been blessed to have pretty much what I can call pretty successful musical career in the United States. I'm a product of the Haitian Conservatory of Music. I attended the Haitian Seventh-day Adventist University as well. And my first 26 years in the United States were spent in New York. So I'm a New Yorker at heart, but the last 18 years, I've been enjoying the Sunshine State and it has been a true blessing. I think when I decided to leave New York, Nerva and his brothers, they were taking over the state, so I had to get out of the way. That's it. I said, no, 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 no. It's time for me to go someplace else. Um, I've served pretty much all my years in New York as the well, we don't do ministers of music in most SDA churches, but I was whatever you name it at Ebenezer for 23 years straight. And when I left New York, I left Amity Baptist Church after 13 years. So the last 18 years, I've been with Antioch Missionary Baptist Church in Oviedo, Florida, and on Saturdays with the Palm Bay SDA Church um, with Dr. Wintley Phipps. Now, before I say anything, I'm going to make it very clear. My case is very special. I don't know any musicians who's going to serve an SDA church surrounded by a pastor of a high musical level like Wintley Phipps. So therefore, that is going to make a huge difference for any professional musician, simply because it's Wintley Phipps. He is going to do what no one else can do for a professional musician. So whatever I say tonight, let's make sure I will repeat over and over, aside from the Palm Bay SDA Church. It's a different scenario. And I will go further. If Wintley Phipps is no longer the pastor of that church, I do not discredit my first elder, my second elder, the elders board, and many members who are tremendously in love with what my family brings to that church. But I have no doubt that it will not be the same. Things will change overnight. So I thank God for the placement that He's granted me at Palm Bay Seventh-day Adventist Church, where I serve as everything. I'm the church organist, I'm the church pianist, praise team leader. I teach the praise team. I'm about to restart the church choir, which had stopped since COVID. I put together orchestra concerts. We handle the video productions for the church. As you see, I'm home hiding in my studio because my grandkids are here. This is the time to be with my grandkids, but I have to lock everybody out. I have a 5-year-old grandson. You know what, Safia, to enter this room right now. I wouldn't be able to talk to you guys. So I say thank you, Lord, for what has been a very successful musical career at 62 years old. So, yes, yeah, I'm the veteran. I'm probably older than everyone else in this group.
Brother, I just turned 60, so.
Oh, please, you're a baby. You're still a baby.
Yeah, man, I just turned. Look, I got my shirt on too. Look, I got my shirt, man. That's a shirt, man. Yeah,
listen, before you were born, I spent 3 years eating bananas, like we say in Haiti.
Hey, man, you know I'm gonna lean on you, man. I'm gonna lean on you. I need help.
I'll be 59 next Wednesday.
Blessings.
You got me.
All right. And I'm Nerva Altino. I'm here in the air. Can everybody hear me? All right. I'm Nerva Altino. I am a graduate of Atlantic Union College, South Lancaster, Massachusetts. I was born in Haiti, grew up in New York City, grew up in Queens, New York. When my brother and I were very young, we used to marvel at ourselves playing organ and piano at Maranatha. So he doesn't know it, but he's one of our heroes. And I mean that. Anyway, I am music director at the Linden Seventh-day Adventist Church, where I have been serving as music director now, probably about, I believe, 10 years, but I've been organist there since I was 13. I'm also about to embark in a new musical adventure as music director of a church, New Canaan Congregational Church in Connecticut. So I'm also one half of the Altino Brothers, a piano duo team. My brother Robinson and I, we have done quite a lot. We've been blessed to do a lot of things as a piano duo. So I'm just privileged and honored that Thomas has agreed to take on this podcast where we could discuss matters that are so important to our church with such distinguished artists and Christian musical artists as you guys. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thomas? We're having some difficulty with Thomas. Okay.
I'm going to say a word of prayer while we get Thomas back on. Is that all right?
Yes, please.
God, we're so grateful to be here at this time. And as we talk and share about your work, I pray that you be with Brother Thomas as he is having technical difficulties. The enemy doesn't want us to have this open and honest discussion, this conversation that's long overdue. So I pray, God, in your grace and power, you control the atmosphere, you control technology. So connect them now, God, so we can move forward. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Prayer works. Thomas is back.
Yes, it does.
Yes, yes. Everyone is still here. Good, good. Like I was telling the guests before, we are using a new platform today, so I am still trying to figure out in a large way what we're doing. So bear with us as we move forward. So I had to actually jump off the computer to my cell phone now. So thank God for cell phone apps, technology. So apparently the cell phone works better than the computer. So here we are. Here we are. One of the things I did want us to discuss is the program we had last week. We were discussing the topic was the rise of renowned gospel artists at Seventh-day Adventist gatherings. So one of the things that we do want to make sure that we are doing in our conversations is we do want to hear what the concerns are of our Adventist musicians and others. And I've said this many times. I think I'm going to coin this phrase: is we want to talk about the concerns, but we also want to talk about some plausible um, things that we can do to address them in a positive way. That could also bring about a positive change in our churches. So a few of the things that were brought out last week. One was one of the guests, Brother Bruce Seawood, stated how he did a Google search for Adventist artists. And I think he said he found maybe two or three in the Google search. So one of the suggestions was to create more of a presence of our Adventist artists in searches such as Google, since it's such a very wide use program that individuals do searches. When you want to find out something, you go online, go to a Google search. One of the other things that he mentioned was to put together a registry of Adventist artists so that there would be a central location where it can be made, or it can be published throughout Adventism, through the conferences, churches, and just as a whole, on the whole. So when these various events are taking place, if they are looking for a particular artist, then they have a central location to go where they can find uh, the talent within our denominations to call and to utilize for those particular events. So there was another suggestion that was made. Thirdly, the suggestion was made that there be a meeting of the minds, so to speak, where we can reach out to various conference presidents, leaders within our denomination, to basically say, we know that you use artists for different events. Have you considered XYZ as a viable alternative with that particular event that you may have coming up? One of the things that was also mentioned was when they're bringing the more known or renowned artists to these events, to also include on their ticket one of our very own. That would give them more exposure, and also show that we are supporting our artists as well. So those were some of the suggestions that were brought out from last week's program that we're looking to start putting in place. So please be on the lookout for those various questionnaires that may come out for the artists so that we can obtain your information and then move forward to make sure that that information is passed along to the leadership of our church in the various capacities so that they can reach out to the artists for future, hopefully, that they will reach out to the artists for future engagements on a larger scale within our denomination as well. So those are some of the things that we are venturing to move forward on at this point in time. And then, of course, today, our topic is about the money. To pay or not to pay? I guess that's that question has been around probably since the beginning of my time as playing in the Adventist church, which is, I have gray hair, but don't let that fool you. I'm still a young guy. So we're going to dive into that conversation today. And with our panelists, see if we can have a deeper conversation and also a more meaningful conversation where we can address those issues. And again, I'll see what type of solutions that we could bring to the table that will help moving forward. So with that being said, Nerva, did you want to set the table a little bit more as we
Sure.
start the panelist discussion?
Sure. To begin, I want to you all a guideline by the AGO, the American Music Organist, that the classical organist in regards to, I'm hearing the echo of myself, in regards to hiring musicians in non-SDA churches. So a lot of non-SDA churches, particularly traditional churches, use this guideline as a form of payment for music directors and organists. Okay, so it has different scales of payment for different things. So full time, 3/4 time, half time, and so forth and so on. So I'm going to focus on the full time as well as the half time, part time rather. So if you are serving as music director at a church,
hold on, Brother Nev. I'm going to ask everyone if they'll be so kind to mute their lines so we can hear you without the feedback. Respectfully.
Okay. I need to mute something.
No, I think if everybody looks at their screen, their program, there is an icon where you can mute your mic while somebody else is speaking. Let's all try to mute our own mics, especially if you're not using a headphone. If you're using a headphone, it's not a problem because the echo is real bad.
Yeah. Can you all hear me? I don't hear the echo anymore. Okay, good. So I'm gonna speak about this guideline to kind of educate some of our folks who believe that one should not be compensated to serve in the Adventist church. You know, people believe that you also can't. Music is not a profession, and it's something you should do as a hobby. Well, many of us here are trained musicians. Even if we didn't have a degree in music, you've taken piano lessons, voice lessons, and you're serving in your church. So naturally, your time should be valuable enough for whatever church or capacity to which you serve. The church should be your time should be valuable enough where the church could invest in your talents. But anyway, here's the guideline. If you're a music director in a non-SDA church, all right. So and it starts with credentials. If you are a skilled musician, organist, who's had private lessons, your base salary should be 52,000. I'm going to round these numbers, all right? $53,000 to $71,000 a year. This includes benefits. These numbers I'm calling out. This is someone who has had private lessons, without a degree of some sort in music. If you've earned a bachelor's degree in music, the pay scale for you would be $66,000 to $87,000 per year. If you have a master's degree in music, now these are full time positions. If you have a master's degree in music, your base salary should be $76,000 to $101,000. That's the range. If you have a doctorate in music, the pay scale should be $85,000 to $113,000 annually. That's full time. Now, part time, average about 20 hours a week. If you are, someone who's had private lessons, the pay scale is $30,000 to $40,000. With a bachelor's degree, working part time as a music director, pay scale is $36,000 to $50,000. With a master's degree, the pay scale is $41,000 to $57,000. If you have a doctorate degree in music, the pay scale is $47,000 to $64,000. That's the range that many of these churches go by in terms of salary scale for music directors, whether it be part-time or full-time, based on the American Guild Organist. Now, from what I understand, they no longer provide this guideline. And this particular guideline I just read is from 2015. It's not that recent. So I'd imagine it's much more now in terms of pay scale. So I have created a pay scale for SDA churches. But before I go through that, let's talk about, I'd love to hear your thoughts, our panel here, on the pay scales, what have been your experiences, and, how can we go about um, getting our SDA churches to be more open to compensating musicians for their services. And when I say musicians, that includes singers, all right? Because we're all musicians.
I would start with the fact that we have, and when I say we, I mean Capitol Hill, we have paid specific musicians since day one: pianists, organists, band. And when it comes to singers, it has actually been special guests who would get paid. And even in knowing that I sing full time as a singer for other churches and get paid, whenever I go to my home church, I will not get paid. The only time I did get paid was the 4 years that I lived in Indiana. I transferred my membership for 3 years, and they asked me to come back and sing for the Women's Day. And I got paid. And when I say get paid, I am not one of those singers that will go to every single church and demand payment. Depending on the size of the church, because a lot of what you're dealing with is how they think and how they view the importance of ministry and music in their church. If it's a smaller church, usually the vibe is whatever we get, that's what we'll put up with. So the idea of actually paying to get someone who has more skill in music it's hard for them to fathom. I've sung at a couple of churches in this area who didn't understand that a praise team leader gets paid, and they did not pay me because they do not pay, but they pay the band. So I'm I agree with it because it's just like paying staff, because that's how I get paid at the Catholic churches. I am a staff soloist at St. Augustine, at Holy Comforter, and at St. Camillus. That is my job. So when they need a voice for a funeral, I'm the first person they call. When they need a voice for other events, I'm the first person that they call. And I will include that as I get a certain rate for each song each time I sing, and I will let them know, and time, turn in time. I will let them know and I will get paid because I had to fill out an application. I had to do a W2. I had to do all of the things that a regular staff person would do. But in our church, I feel that the attitude is we're a music based denomination. So because of that, we will accept any kind of music, and that's how I've seen it from the time I was a little kid. Um, and I don't agree with that, because to me, we set a standard. We set a standard. When I got into Patrick Lundy and Ministers of Music, I auditioned with Patrick Lundy. He saw Seventh Day Adventist when it stated, what church do you belong to? When he saw that, he said, "Oh, I don't have to worry about you. You can sing anything." And that is how people see us on the outside. That is how we see ourselves, but we take advantage of the skill that we have. And that is where my problem comes, when they are willing to bring Kiki and Karen Clark and all these people who I absolutely love. And I think it's fabulous that they'll do that. But they do that thinking, "Oh, I'm going to get more people to come because they're going to know them before they know you." And I'm like, well, yeah, that might be true. But in the area that you're going, if you're dealing with a conference and you're bringing in the vocalists from that conference, people are going to support them too. It's not, I they think a lot like movie producers and people who own movie companies say about blacks, how they say that we don't go to the movies. So they're not going to put a black person in a starring role because they don't believe that we will go to the theater and pay $8 to $15 to see someone in that role, because we for some reason they think we don't do that, when that's not true. So that's that's what I got for that. That's how I feel.
Sister Linda, if I may add to what you're going to share. First of all, when you come to faith, I'm going to take care of you.
When you want, when you
Amen.
want me. No.
Amen. And let me tell you how that happened at Faith, because um, I started. Well, from we moved from New York to Hartford in '77. At that time,
No,
Faith.
Angel Cloud,
Hmm?
Angel Foster.
Yes, yes,
She was
yes.
my best friend at Oakwood.
Oh, okay. All right, all right. So you know Gil Anderson and Linda Anderson, and Marcellus Howard, and yeah. So and Faith, at the time when we came here, the only musicians that were paid were guests. Everyone who played or sang that was a member of the church, you volunteered your time and services. Um, Even while I was in school, I was going to school in New York, and I would travel on Fridays to get here in time to rehearse, and do what I have to do. Sabbath morning play, and then get back to New York after 8 and not even a handshake or a thank you. That's another conversation. And so, how did we turn the tide? Um, the best way to bend iron is slowly. There has to be someone who has to be the generation to help leadership understand the value of what is being given. So, how did we do that? We did it through trial and error, and also too, churches go through growth changes. Uh, those that with the mindset that you should not be compensated, unfortunately, they will retire, move away, or pass on, and other ones will take their places. And when other people take their places, they will see the value. I think one of the greatest things that happened to the Adventist Church was COVID.
Hmm.
COVID put us in the position where we had to really look at who do we have to help support the ministry for those who would come back, those that would be part of a choir, because most of our choirs, if they didn't get sick, Lord, if I could tell it like I want to, or if they didn't have challenges, they allowed the praise team to be the choir of, and also to the genre of music changed and shifted in our church. And so you had to be flexible. But anyway, to help with you, we have a guest praise and worship leader that comes to our church. And it took forever to get them to understand the value. So what happened? I volunteered my own money. And when they saw what I was giving year after year, some of the members said, no, that's not right. And so they said, well, let's help. So what the church has done now is they will compensate certain Sabbaths, and I will compensate certain Sabbaths for our guests. And so that's what I mean by bending the iron slowly to a value. Because the thing is, we don't have um, singers who want to take over because they have been abused because of the spiritual racism in music in the Adventist church, where we feel culturally, not biblically, but culturally, it's not appropriate in our settings. So there has been this pushback, if you will. So it's taking the Sister Linda's and Brother Nerva and Brother Thomas and Brother Pierre. It's taken all of us. We have stood the ground to help bend the iron and to help and Sister Deanne to help to understand the value of the. Wait a minute. There has to be some way where we can be a blessing to those who serve us week after week. Because the truth of the matter is, oh, there's the feedback. The truth of the matter is, we do have the money.
Yeah, keep the
If
sound.
I could share my slides, but it starts from the top. It starts from General Conference coming down. If the top leader, Ted Wilson, does not have the warm fuzzies to support music ministry in the Adventist church, and he has strong views that are not biblical, it's personal, it sets the tone for the other conference leaders to say, okay, well, if he has this attitude, I'm going to have this attitude. And it trickles down to the local conferences, which trickles down to our local pastors, because they got a job to keep. They got families to feed. If they push against the grain, they can lose their position. They can lose their jobs. And there's only a handful of pastors that I know in Northeastern who stands up for us. And because of that, I stand up for them and support them. Turn it back over to you.
Maestro Arcel.
I'm right there. But now I have to handle I have a lot to say, but I gotta handle my grandson. I'm trying to put him out of the room. Ooh, my Lord, I need to get Safi out of there. Safi. Okay, thank you. Well, Sister Linda and Paul, I think when I saw the title of this our presentation today, it gives me the chill, and I say to myself, "Am I going to have the courage to tell it like it is?"
Do it, brother. Do it.
Come on in, man. The water's fine. It feels good over here.
Bring it.
All right, let's take it from the top. For those who may not know, I'm the son of a Seventh-day Adventist pastor. So I've been all my life an SDA playing from my teenage years until now for our system. Problem number one, the SDA organization as an organization does not even have a music department. I don't think there's a music department at the General Conference. There's none at the union level. There's none at the conference level. What does that tell you? It's a system that is pretty much built to exploit the talent of God's people. And there's no signs of that ever changing. So if the GC doesn't have it, the unions don't have a music department, the conferences don't have, the federations don't have, so the churches are left to feed for themselves, to each his own. So one church may have one approach toward music, the other one may not. And this is a system that has gone on for hundreds of years and still maintain a strong financial status. So money is not the problem. We don't have a money problem in the SD organization. Let's get that straight. Aside from that, my main issue is with professional musicians. I'm going to be very clear. The ones that I define as professional musicians are if somebody who's received some kind of professional training, like Nerva was saying, it may not be a PhD or even a master's degree, but you had some kind of training where you can even assemble an orchestra. You can do anthems at your church. It's not just doing gospel songs here and there 24/7, 365 days a year. You can present a variety of music. Like at my church, I can do kids choir, I can do young people's choir, I can do the praise team. And if I feel like doing an orchestra like I did, I put together music for a large orchestra. So we cover the entire circle of music. Why would a professional musician like myself sit at a church for $100? The problem is not with the church. It's with the musician himself. You should have enough respect for yourself not to allow people to devalue you and demonize you to that level. Because the truth is, this is the United States of America. Professional musicians can live a good life. There's 1,000 things that we can do. Playing for church is just one of these things. I don't have to name them because sometimes I don't even need them to know what I do for a living. Because in most of these church boards, unfortunately, in our community, it's a lot of low-income church board members sitting on the board. If you have somebody making $30,000 a year, you have 10, 12, 20 members like this on your church board, you cannot expect that church board to ever approve a $60,000 salary for an organist. That's never going to happen. It's a poverty mindset that we are all wrapped into and that we can't get out, and we won't get out of it for a while.
Yeah.
So the thing is that I'm all for serving. I'm all for serving God. I believe in serving. But what a lot of musicians don't realize is that sometimes you'll find a smaller church in the neck of the woods somewhere who can't find good help, willing to do better than these big churches where they've got 30, 40 musicians on staff. And most of these musicians are not necessarily musicians that are practicing full-time music. These are a lot of times they've got their own career during the week, but they enjoy the stage on Saturdays. So they'll come and play for free just to be on the stage. They don't need the job. But what you also have in these churches, you have a very unstable music department. One year it's good, the following year it's a mess. It may go on for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Then the choir director, because that's not their full-time job, choir director fluctuates in that. Like you said, Paul, about COVID. COVID was a good and a great thing for the SDA community. I I discovered the madness that is still going on in some of our biggest names, churches in the SDA community. I'm talking about churches with $1 million projects that are big. Go watch their services. They have orchestra made of sometimes young people playing with instruments that are out of tune. The orchestrations that they are rendering on Saturdays are basic third, I would say third grade level orchestration. And I'm talking about big names. But to the people, they look at an orchestra and they can tell that the clarinet is off tune, the violin is not properly kit. Yes, hey, I'm a piano teacher privately also. I'm all for the kids learning how to play an instrument. But Lord have mercy, I don't want to hear violin out of tune by anybody on Sabbath morning. Is this our best? But this is the behavior that we have in some of our biggest churches, and all of that is on YouTube. It's out there. And these churches have $1 million budgets. That's one aspect. Another aspect, maybe I'm saying too much right now. Maybe I should take a pause. Do you know that?
Keep going.
Do you know that in the SDA community, I dare say that most pastors don't want a professional musician around them. They see us as a threat.
Yep.
They don't see us as partners. There's jealousy and envy in that circle. Mm-hmm. I have seen SDA pastors fire well-trained, gifted musicians just because the pastor's wife who came in that church wanted to take over a choir that was doing well.
Yes.
Now, you have a musician who has a master's degree, is well equipped, and connects very well with the young people, but the pastor's wife wants to take the lead of that church. She knows she can't override and run that musician. So you know what they do? They convince the church board that, okay, the little $200-300 that they were paying is too much money. I can do it for free.
Mm-hmm.
And here we go again with the poverty mindset church board members. They all lined up. Guess what? It doesn't even take a year. That same choir that had 80 members totally disappear.
Yep.
That same church ends up splitting in less than 2 years.
Yep.
I'm seeing this mess every day. That's how much we devalue professional musicians. We don't want to see them well. The structure has no provision for music. Mm-hmm. Musicians themselves, they devalue themselves. They don't respect themselves. If I don't respect myself, I can expect them to respect me. It has to start with me. I have to know what I'm worth before you determine what I'm worth. You are not going to tell me what I'm worth. I'm going to tell you. And at the end of the day, it's going to be take it or leave it. I'll take a break. I'll be back. Yeah, I'll take a short pause.
All right, brother. Yes, sir. Sister Deanne?
Yes. I would have to say, having a father that is a retired minister now. My father always appreciated music. And so as a child, me living in New York and having experience at Linden was a great introduction to music for me. I would have to say, because I was a child, when we moved to New York, that's when I discovered all kinds of music, the anthems, and Linden, by Nerva being there at Linden, Linden has always had a great quality of music. And nothing less has come out of Linden. So having that experience, my father being a lover of music and being a pastor, I would have to say, my father was not one of those ministers that devalued his musicians because he really honored the musical gifts, and he had mad respect. So by me being around a person that had respect for musicality and the studying of music, then it was just a whole totally different experience for me growing up in the church. And I'm sorry that the brother you had to go through that and you seen that. But I guess, I haven't been under a whole lot of other ministers besides my father. So therefore, that's why I said my experience was different. Um, I will say, um, as you were talking about the pay scale and all. So I didn't graduate with a degree in music. So I minored in music. My degree was in mass communications, but I minored. And I think that the Lord has blessed me to have the gift of music, and then by me going to and playing for different churches, and we've noticed how things have changed in the church, where a lot of churches are not really doing anthems anymore. It just depends on where you are, but the churches are not, and some churches are not even doing hymns anymore. Okay, so that part. And so when you just start talking about pay and whatnot, so there are churches that where you have to play the organ and you have the skill set like a Catholic church or maybe an AME or Lutheran. Those churches are still, holding on to the values of having degreed musicians, but and the respect, because a person has a degree. And like you and Brother Nervous said, there are some people who studied music, but they did not get a degree, but they play exceptionally well. They may do some other things, but they are more than qualified to. They read music, they know what they're doing musically. So that matters as well. When you're talking about having a musician at your church, um, I like I said, in the Adventist church, I have seen a decline. I don't know. I haven't been on the East Coast in such a long time, but in the West Coast, most certainly. Unfortunately, I would have to say a lot of the churches here on the West Coast are hiring other musicians because we don't have a lot of Adventist musicians that can play. So there is a big outsource of musicians in the California area. And that's because I don't know if that happens in other parts of the world, but our kids, I don't know, we want to invest in a lot of our children to take piano lessons, organ lessons, music, and to train them to play in the orchestras or whatever. But I can say here in the California area, we most certainly do not have a lot of Adventist musicians that play in a lot of our churches now. And I know that for a fact because I visit all the churches, and there is a great decline in the music. Well, we're with Adventists playing for us because we don't have a lot of Adventist musicians at this present moment. And that's not to knock the musicians that play for us because they most certainly are qualified. But it's just that we don't have a lot of Adventist musicians here in especially in the Bay Area of California.
So,
I have, let me just bring this up since I am in the East Coast. I have sung, and I don't have a music degree. I have a business administration bachelor's, and I have an MBA. However, I have sung. I learned to read music in the children's choir at First Church.
Mm-hmm.
I sang. I didn't actually sing at. I went to Tacoma Academy. I only sang with the choir for the last semester. But during that time, I was singing with the adult choir at Capitol Hill, who did all choral music. Everything we did back then was choral, or spirituals or anything like that. And then I've been with all sorts of different directors and have learned all different styles of music, different genres of music. But my point is the musician issue is because musicians are not willing to take the kind of pay that churches are wanting to offer.
Okay.
So I know a number of young people who are musicians, but they no longer play for the Adventist church.
Okay.
And they don't have to because they're playing on Sunday and they make double, triple the amount. So what do they need to? They don't need to play at their home church. They're not even in the area. A lot of the kids that I know are either in New York or they're in Atlanta or there's some that are in California, but they're not playing for us. They're playing, I know a few that are part of opera societies and who are in they do different orchestrations and deal with that level. So our church loses out and gets people to the point where they just leave altogether. And that for me is the frustration and the fear is that our quality of music and the familial of music, meaning that it's Adventists singing or playing, that's being lost. And it's not good because the quality is better than it was back in the day when we actually did have good music, but our skill set is even better now, but we're treated worse than we were treated back then.
If I may add to what you're saying, Linda, I mean, the Jean-Pierres are known to be quite a gifted family. I have 2 adult children. My son holds a music degree from UCF. He serves as Minister of Music and is doing very well. My daughter is a PA, plays classically at a very high level. My biggest fear when my own children were growing up was that I did not want them to end up serving the SDA church like I did. I'm turning 63 in November, but I've been doing this from 14 years old.
Yeah.
And professionally from the age of 20, when I started playing for real pay in Brooklyn at 20 years old.
Yeah.
26 years at that church in Long Island, and the last 18 years at Palm Bay. Again, like I'm reminding you that whatever I say today, cut Palm Bay off because of its leader.
Right.
Palm Bay is the exception on the planet. I'm making that very clear.
He was with us first.
That's right. I know. So,
what you're saying is that
yes.
we had praise teams back then, but we had choirs at the same time.
So Whitley understands the struggle of a musician better than anybody else. And this is a man that will do the impossible to care about the music that is rendered at his church. He wants nothing less than the best that we can press over there. Yeah. I've been on a quest to find something out. Now that I'm older, I realized that all of a sudden, medical insurance is very important to me. And I've been tracking down all my fellow professional SDA musicians. I have yet to find a musician, professional SDA musician, who has served the Seventh-day Adventist Church for 25 years or more at my age, who has any medical insurance paid for by a church in the SDA community. I'm not saying that there are, guys, I'm not saying that there are none.
But
I'm
you know
just
what?
trying. I'm trying to find one musician on the planet who has served for 25 years or more.
I'm not going to find
And,
it.
and now that I'm in my 60s, I realize that what's more important to me now is no longer a paycheck. I
Right.
better have good insurance.
Right.
And guess what? 10 out of 10 of us are covered by a Sunday church.
Yeah. But you know why? It's because the Adventist church does not consider a musician part of the staff, because
No,
every staff member at that church
Right.
has benefits.
you being
Musician
kind.
is
I would say,
considered the musicians are paid as if they are hourly
Yes.
people.
right, that's being kind of you. I appreciate your kindness. I'll go further. That is, to me, I'll say you don't even look at me as a human being. If I'm going to give you 40 years of my life, there's a certain age, like it or not, these fingers are going to start to get issues. My
Yeah.
body is going to fall apart. And I gave you 40 years of my life that can be documented, and I can't get help
Mm-mm.
anywhere in this organization. We've got a serious problem.
They say they will pray for you.
Yes.
They say,
Exactly.
no, I'm telling you. They said we will put you on the prayer list.
And then send you to the Affordable
Right. When
Care
you
Act.
retire with the sick and the shut, and you can watch the service from home
Yep.
or wherever you end up,
Yep.
which is true. So
They'll give
it's
you
going
a
to take.
plaque. You'll get a plaque.
Well, at least you got one. But there's so many of our retired musicians who have even passed on.
Yeah.
That's why I have taken upon myself to honor those legends who are still with us today.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to take you and I to say we need to create a climate. But in order to get the insurance from our own churches, it has to start from the top. And the conference has to come up. Now, I'm in Northeastern. We have a new conference president because our awesome leader, Pastor Jules, just got promoted. But it's
Right.
going to take someone to say, okay, what is it that you all need so that we can make it happen? And I think this conversation, if our leaders can get a copy of today's discussion, and then we can have something done sooner than later, because we're all going to pass through our 60s if God sees fit, 70s, 80s. And we have given our lives. Most of us, I believe, have done more than 25 years of service in our respective places. And it is, and God is watching. God is watching how we take care of our own.
So let me ask a question. Because again, one of the things that we want to make sure that we tackle is we all know what the problem is. I call it a problem because it seems like all of us that's sitting here and now in this discussion, we've been involved in our church ministry since our youth, pre-teenage, up until now. So, what could be some steps? And I have a question I'd like to ask. What would it be too far-fetched for all of the musicians, or well, maybe not all, but the vast majority of musicians to say, you know what, we're going to form a union of musicians.
Mm-hmm.
So as a union of musicians in our denomination, we're going to be fair. So it's been mentioned that one, money is not the problem. I actually had a conversation with someone today and asked about GC, and it was mentioned here today. GC does not even have a music department.
Mm-mm.
Period.
Mm-mm.
If you call GC and ask about music, they're going to send you to the communication department.
Mm.
Yep.
I've done it. I've called them on more than one occasion,
Yep.
and they sent me to someone who's in communication for music.
Yep.
All right, let's go further before you hit that. The last GC session, did you know they expected us to pay our own way to come to the general session?
Yeah.
Pay our own airfare, room and board, food.
Yep.
Then we had to send in audition tapes.
Yep.
Y'all ain't catch it.
And that's why I've never gone.
And then Let me mute myself. Turn it back over to you.
Well, you're right, because actually during that time we actually the AMNI network, we actually helped to try to start the conversation and bring about some changes to the requirements for the music for GC. Because when I tell you, with the original document, the stipulations in that document in order to be considered to present music at GC was, it was shocking, but not shocking. The things that they had stipulated as what was holy music, what type of instrumentation would be considered as acceptable at this general conference session. It was crazy. I mean, just some interesting things, but it all goes back to, in my mind, if we are going to, and Estelle, you said this, and when you said this, my mind started to run. If we don't value ourselves, how can we expect for others to value us?
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I was like, okay, well, with that statement being stated, we need to, like other professions, other industries, why don't we have a union?
I was saying that to somebody last week.
So if I may add, I've heard the points that have been made. I mean, you all nailed it. I think starting a union would be a key factor. I think some of the challenges within our church is the fact versus the non-SDA churches is the fact that the tithe and offering, the tithe in our church
Mm-hmm.
does not stay within our local churches.
Yep.
That 10% tithe is sent to our local conferences, whereas the non-SDA churches, everything stays within that particular church.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty saddening when you see large churches that are sending $1.5 million to their local conferences, but yet cannot find the finances to fix a wall or a doorknob on a door.
Yep.
So, and when you bring ministry to them, music ministry to them, it's something that is almost frowned upon because they claim to not have the money. And to be honest, to some extent, they are being truthful. They don't have the money because most of the tithe, all the tithe, are sent to the conference, whereas people don't donate or return the
Right.
offering um, to local churches as much as they should.
Mm-hmm.
So, a solution that I think, and I hope the local conference pastors don't get angry with me about this, but Brother Arcel stated earlier, it starts at the top. After the top, from GC down, go to the local conference. How about if we were to uh, say to the local conferences, the pastors, the local pastors, every church that returns $500,000 to the local conferences, the local conference now should say to that church, okay, here's 10 to 15% of that money for you to run various ministries. I mean, if a church is returning $1.5 million a year to a conference, if you take $150,000 and invest that back into ministries, including the music, I think it would go pretty far. We'll be a lot further than we are now. I mean, me included, a lot of my colleagues, we have to go back into our own pockets in addition to asking church members to sponsor annual musical programs, Christmas, Easter, and so forth, because the church cannot finance those programs.
Mm-hmm.
So if we were to go to the local conferences, if a church returns more than $500,000 or more, that church should be rewarded by, you know, giving them back about 10 to 15% of that tithe to finance ministries. I mean, you can't have these $1 million churches breaking down because they don't have the finances to even upkeep the building. You know,
Yeah.
so I don't know the historical aspect of how tithing came about, where it's structured in a way where all of it goes to the conference, but I think it could start there and make its way to the top. You know.
Nova, you made a very, very good point and a very good suggestion. But let me quickly go back to the unionized idea.
Hmm.
Although we're discussing pay scale for musicians, but the unionized idea could be such a blessing
Yes,
to
it
the
would.
SDA community at large. Because if I if I draw a circle between Queens and Nassau County, at the most I can remember, you and your brother are probably the only two highly trained professional musicians in that area. In the SDA community,
Well, Paul B.
in
Son Jr. is another.
okay, that's two. All right, let's say three or four. Three or four around at least 20 churches, 20 SDA churches. In the Orlando area, I can tell you in the SDA community, there's Gail Murphy, who's very well known. The husband and wife pianist, yeah, yeah.
Jamie
Jimmy
Well.
Hill.
Yes,
Jimmy
Jamel.
Hill.
You're right. You have my own Asel Jr., Brittany, myself. At the most, eight of us highly trained professional musicians. But you're looking at about 40 to 50 churches. If you have a unionized, well organized department, can you imagine how much a blessing this would be to the churches? Instead of one church having Nerva and Robertson 2 to 3 times a year, now we could go around and share our gifts and talent
Right.
with various churches. So it's not just the Palm Bay getting a cantata. Now, because it's a union process now, it could spread and share that load of musical talent throughout the community. And that's what I feel like doing at my age. I'm blessed to serve one church, but I watch and I see so many young musicians growing right now. Everybody's playing neo soul, a million chords. They can't read most hymns. Yeah, they know it is well. They
Oh
know
no.
Blessed Assurance. They know three or four hymns. If you tell them 222, they look at it. Their best chance is to pull a phone, go to YouTube to listen to it
Yep.
quickly. They
Yep.
don't have guidance.
Nope.
There's no leadership. There's
Mm-mm.
no guidance, and you have an entire generation of growing musicians with no training. When those of us now in our 60s should be the one doing these kind of workshops and
Yeah.
helping. So that would be the benefit of your concept of a unionized project. I really like that, and I hope God leads you in that direction. So it's a little bit more than just, oh Lord, break time.
No,
No,
you're right.
you're
You're
good.
right.
So here's the thing too. I said that's good. Here's the thing. Um, I could be wrong. I've been a Seventh Day Adventist from pre-birth, right? So I think I made this statement in last week's program as well. In order for us to make a change, it has to be that grassroots concept.
Yeah.
We have to do it on a local area and then allow it to grow from there.
Mm-hmm.
I could be wrong, but unless there's a dramatic change on the GC level, GC is not going to change.
Mm-mm.
So I'm saying it has to start at the local conference level.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have to put together a viable proposal, a viable plan, and have enough individuals that's not just going to sit around the table and talk about it for a supper dinner after service, but actually is going to say, okay, well, I'll help move this forward. And it doesn't always have to be only musicians doing this. If we can rally pastors, church leadership, and filter to the conference, the regional conferences. If we can get regional conference presidents to say, no, well, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's come together as regional conferences. Then we'll take it to the union level. And then we get to the union, take it NAD and just allow it to grow from that aspect. Then GC may take note of it and may not try to halt it, but it has to be something that is going to be from the ground up. We're going to have to be able to do it from our point of view, rally people around that concept, that idea, bring people to the table who has the ability to formalize that, and then say, okay, this is what we got. Let's move forward.
I'm seeing that we could even have on the singer side, the choirs. Now, Capitol Hill is the only church that I'm at of the Adventist churches that I work with that has a choir. We still have our sanctuary choir. Our gospel choir has returned. Our youth choir, well, children's choir and youth choir have all returned. Other churches in this area, I don't know of any that have a choir, and I mean one.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
and
it's
I'm
it's a
thinking
it's a hard.
that
Yeah.
something like this would provide the opportunity to do either workshops, to have voices coming back, to even bring some of our voices to certain areas of different conferences and the areas within the United States and outside that can provide them with choral music or with
Mm-hmm.
choir music, whatever. But that's what's missed because of COVID. Choirs, people aren't coming back to rehearsal. They're just not, some people aren't coming back to church at all. They're watching it on TV, in their pajamas at home.
Yeah.
But I think I can see that vocally also being utilized and accepted and appreciated, and it can make things grow back. We're losing it.
I would even say, even pre-COVID, that we were losing choirs in our churches.
Yes. COVID was the
That's
excuse.
right. Exactly. Right. Right.
COVID was
COVID
the
gave us
excuse.
right. Right.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
it's interesting because I'm always curious to find out how we can uh, have ideas and concepts to kind of address some of these issues. This particular one, I think, is very. It's been around probably forever, as far as the pay scale. And Nerva, I know you went over the pay scale for the general guild for
Mhm.
organists, but Nerva also came up with one for the Adventist denomination, and I would really be interested to see what the panel's thoughts are on those numbers that you came up with, Nerva.
Okay. All right. If you are an Adventist artist, musician, music director, I hope you will get a notepad to write this down.
Can you share your screen?
I'm not
Yeah.
on the computer to do that, so can you do it
Oh,
your side, Nerva?
got you.
No, I can't
Yeah,
do it on my side because
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
actually I'm on
Unfortunately, yeah.
an iPad. Yeah. So but I could email it to you, Paul. All
And
right.
what we can also do too, we can Nerva, we can make it available through our social media sites as
Yes.
well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So salary payment guidelines for Adventist musicians and artists. Sabbath services, staff musician. A music director. The salary range could be part-time to full-time. A music director should be paid an average of $35,000 to $60,000 annually. An organist, pianist, or keyboardist should be paid between $250 to $500 per service.
Mhm.
Bass guitar, drums, or other, could be saxophone or what have you, should be paid $150 to $200 per service.
Mhm. That's about right.
Soloist, guest soloist, singer should be paid between $150 to $250 per service. That's for Sabbath services. For crusade and evangelistic meetings, organists, keyboardists, or pianists should be paid between $1,000 to $1,400 per week for a 5 to 7 night crusade. Bass guitar, drummer, or other should be paid between $750 to $1,000 per week. This is from a 5 to 7 night weekly meeting. We usually have 5 nights. Praise team leader or singing evangelist should be paid between $1,000 to $1,400 per week. Concert appearances. To be part of a band here, organists, keyboardists, or pianists should be paid between $300 to $500 for the night. Bass guitar, drummer, or other should be paid between $200 to $350 per night. A featured soloist for a concert appearance should be paid between $250 to $350 for 2 to 3 songs, $400 to $750 for a 15 to 30-minute set. And a headliner, the SDA headliner, should be paid between $1,000 to $3,000 for the night. I'm often contacted about what should be paid for weddings and funerals. An organist for a wedding ceremony, organist or keyboardist or pianist, should be paid between $300 to $500 with one rehearsal. A bass guitar, drummer, or other should be paid between $200 to $300 for the wedding. A singer or soloist should be paid between $150 to $250 for the wedding. And for funerals, an organist or keyboardist or pianist should be paid between $250 to $350 for the service. Bass guitar, drummer, or other should be paid between $150 to $200. A singer or soloist for that funeral should be paid between $150 to $200 for that service. We're gonna, as Brother Thomas stated, we're gonna post this guideline for those of you who may want to use it when you want to negotiate with your respective churches.
May I ask you to add something very important to this guideline?
Yes, sir.
I agree 100% with everything, but one more item. As long as the driving distance is within 30 miles, I'm okay with these prices.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely okay.
And time. We didn't discuss this from the beginning of the conversation.
Listen, guys.
Time.
If I'm going to drive an hour and 30 minutes to get to a church, you can keep your money.
Yeah. Or they got to.
That's one. Now, I pray that some of our church board members are watching this so they can pull their papers and add the numbers. Church organist, X. Church pianist, X. Praise team leader, X. Church choir director, X. And let's add it all up. Why don't you just hire a professional musician starting at $65,000? Anything less than that is a ripoff.
I totally agree. And if we can't add to it, when I mentioned time, if a service is supposed to start at a certain time, then it should start at that time because the meter should start running from there. Unfortunately, many of our churches or church leaders don't value time. What do you mean, Brother Paul? Let's say Sabbath morning, and we happen to have 2 services now at Sabbath. We don't have one; we have 2. and you got to get Sabbath school in there. That's another conversation. If service is supposed to start at 11, and you said that you want service to end at 1, you can't expect a musician to stay to 2, 2:30, quarter to 3, 3 o'clock, because we had baptism, we had communion, we had a baby blessing, we also had right hand of fellowship. Um, we also had Mission Endeavor. We also had a special Sabbath because we wanted to create something. So, in other words, you have to value their time just like you would value the time of a doctor or a plumber or it's the same thing. I think we should put time restraints because all funerals do not have the same time frame. All weddings don't have the same time frame. If the wedding's supposed to start at 2 and we're waiting and it's now 3:15, but you have played music because they didn't use recorded music. You have now spent all your time and you have exhausted yourself. And most of our weddings are on Sundays. That means you already played in the morning. I wish I had time. So we need to add time into the fact that I meet my line.
Yeah.
Something else that just came to my mind. I got a call last year from a pastor who knew they couldn't have me. They couldn't have me. I was not available. But in his request to me, he says, our church board voted to only hire male musicians if they are married.
Wow.
Because that church went to some trouble with their previous musician and young female, and it seems like 2 young ladies were impregnated at the same time at that church. So
Wow.
that church now took an official vote. They'll hire female musicians, but if they ever have to hire a male musician, it has to be a guy that is married. So I said to him, well, I've been married for 35 years. What's my market value?
You know, that kind of speaks to something to sell because it's like sometimes I think as individuals we make decisions based on emotions, but not the
Yes.
because common sense would tell me whether a man is married or single, if he's going to do something outside of the day, it doesn't matter. So you making the vote and making this rule that makes no sense. So
Yeah.
it's like we're going to you're in the realm of thinking where what's the saying where you're majoring in the minor things and but the minor things you're majoring in. So instead of dealing with the issue of people, now you now you just want to set these parameters which make no sense. But you know, I really think that and I think it's been said before, many times before. It's a mindset that we're dealing with. A lot of us as musicians, whether we are instrumentalists, vocalists, or whatever we do when it comes to music ministry, we've had opportunities to serve in other venues, other denominations, and we see how things are done there. And then when we come back to our home, it's like, okay, what are y'all doing? What are we doing, right? So I really and again, I'm not 63 yet still. I'm getting there.
Don't rush it. Take your time.
I'm really taking my time. But my concern, as you said, is not so much of we've already had the bumps and bruises and the scars from what we experienced coming through the ranks, right? My concern is those who are coming behind us. Um, we are we are not allowing our younger musicians the space and opportunity to actually grow and develop because the way that the churches how how we as churches how we um, approach musicians or how we shy away from musicians. And trust me, as has been said, if we do not allow space for our younger musicians that's coming up after us to be trained to to grow their wings, to spread their wings, so to speak, in our church services, they will find a platform. There are platforms that will open their arms and just say, "Come on in, play, and do what you have to do." And on top of that, we're gonna pay you to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
what are some other things that we can possibly put in place, or ideas or concepts that is going to address, you know, where we are and how to get to the next step? It may not be the next level, but what is the next step that we can get to that point? We can say, okay, well, praise God, we got from here to there. What's some other things that we can do to address that? And also, while we're doing that, making sure that the powers that be in our denomination or church, local churches or conference or even unions know that we need to place value and appreciate our musicians, singer musicians, instrumentalist musicians, past the point of thank you, God bless you, you did well today.
Well, if I may, I think that the local churches can start by investing back into their young people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like Maestro Arcel, I'm one of those fortunate musicians where my home church has fully invested into my talents. I went to school. I came back from college. They hired me. Now, don't get me wrong. There were people on the board who had reservations back then.
Mm.
It is my understanding that one woman on the board, my father overheard this conversation. When I came back from college, I hadn't gone for my grad school for my master's yet, but I was seeking employment at the church. So I'm like, okay, well, Linden was not known to pay musicians at the time, but I asked if they would compensate me to return and be there on staff as one of the organists. And most of the board did approve it, but one particular woman was so angry from what I heard. My father overheard this conversation. She said, I would rather pay a stranger than to pay him. How dare he hold us hostage? After he grew up in this church, now he wants to charge us. So, but needless to say, she was one of the very few who didn't approve. But since that time, Linden has invested in me. I started off as their organist. I played for the choir, eventually became choir director. And now I am the music director, where they are paying me a salary, and they have allowed me the freedom to lead the full ministry and grow it the best way that I can. COVID has been a challenge, as you all know. So, but we've now, we've gotten our choir back in full force. I'm still recruiting members each year. So, local churches need to invest in their talents. I know so many of these young guys here locally who are playing for churches that they didn't grow up in. Their parents are going to one church, they're playing elsewhere because their churches have not taken any interest in investing in them. So I'm one of the fortunate ones, and I think we could start there. Local churches need to invest in their talents.
I think that we should also consider using the grassroots aspect. In politics, they do that a lot, and that's usually how it wins.
We're hearing some strange sound.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
I think it's the off now.
Okay. Because I know I didn't have my. Okay. Because I know that in politics, that's what ends up winning is when they do grassroots. They get a lot of attention and people get excited, and so they start working together and talking. I think this is a good starting point. It's the benchmark for a group, an association, a union who comes together to start talking about ways to communicate and communicate with other musicians who then communicate with other musicians who then start to communicate with their local church, who then can move on to communicating with the conference. I think that it starts with us. And that if we can meet together more often and kind of pull the group as a funding group, then we can start, you never know what can happen. The more people that you get, it's like a team building kind of setup where if you have a team and you start growing that team, each person has different ideas and you can come up with all sorts of additional things that can make it grow. And all of that is going to move out. We have social media, so eventually the powers that be might end up finding out, just because of the fact that we have become very active in moving this forward. So I think that if we continue it as a grassroots kind of prospect, that would definitely be the starting point in getting it started.
Talking about investing in young people, I'll take a minute to recognize Pastor Felix Baker, who's a friend of mine for over years. He served as a pastor at a church in Long Island. I don't even know the name of that church. But while he was there, he struggled to find musicians. And at some point, his church board decided to pay for private lessons for two of their young people. And I, being a friend that he trusted, he assigned these kids to myself, and I've been teaching them virtually for more than a year, for just about a year and 3 or 4 months, not more than that. I can tell you, this 12-year-old who I started with from scratch, because it's a church paying for his lessons, so obviously I'm training him straight, preparing him for hymnal. This is not the kind of student that I'm going to teach you a lot of Bach, a lot of Chopin. Yes, he's going to learn a little bit of that, but the focus is church, playing hymns. That's what the church is paying for. In just about a year and 3 months, this boy has already learned 12 songs as written in the church hymnal.
Wow.
As written, plays both hands, but I must say this one is a gift. I'm not saying that this is going to happen with every young people, because you got to have a little bit of talent. This one has a bright future, and I look forward to fly to New York in September to meet him in person. I have yet to meet him, but like Nerva was talking about, church investing in him, and then church investing in his talent. That's what that church in Long Island is doing currently, and I have 2 of their young people.
You need to write that up as a curriculum.
That's right. And then it also starts with the pastors. Those pastors, a lot of them have very little appreciation for quality music. Instead of leading their congregation and growing their music department upward toward better quality of music, they come in and they go with the flow, and all you get is praise and worship, hardcore gospel 24/7. And unfortunately, we've seen some of our biggest name go that route and destroy the church choirs, the choirs that were doing the anthems and the spirituals. A lot of churches have gone in a different direction because of their leaders.
Yeah.
Because you have pastors who didn't believe, who don't care for that style of music, they don't support it. It's such a blessing for me to be at Palm Bay. I tell you, I'm going to retire there. That's it. After Palm Bay, I'm done. Our church choir hasn't been together since COVID, but we are restarting our rehearsal next Friday night at 7:30. So anybody who's in the area of Palm Bay, join us.
I wish I was close. I'd be right there with you.
Oh, yeah. I would love to have you, because when you spoke about Patrick Lundy did a workshop at my Sunday church 4 or 5 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And we've invited him there twice at Antioch. Oh yeah. Fabulous
awesome.
musician. Yeah.
We were in Fort Lauderdale. We didn't get as close we didn't get to Orlando.
Right.
Lauderdale this year.
Yes.
There are
I think there are multiple things that can be done, but I know they say you tackle a elephant one bite at a time. So I think if we can take a couple of bites out of this elephant, and hopefully um, make a bring it smaller, then maybe we can address it at that point. But I think that what has been said, I think that what is going to really give us to propel us or some momentum in this is having individuals that's going to make some noise consistently in this regard. We've been talking about whether musicians should be paid or not. There's going to be pros and cons on both sides of this conversation, probably until we get to the pearly gates. Probably still be talking about it then. Should you have paid them when you? So one of the things I think that we can do, we probably have to. I'm sure at some point in the future podcast we'll be back having this conversation, kind of see where we're going. Because again, we don't want to just have the conversation about certain steps to take. That we actually want to put these into action, and then maybe our father show for this podcast, Nerva, may be okay. This is what we've done since our first time meeting and kind of see where we are, assess where we are, and then maybe get some more ideas of how to maybe move forward and to get the things that going. Now, one of the things that I did think about, Nervin, I forgot to mention, even with your pay scale outline, maybe at some point within that, we need to also identify what caliber of musicians we're talking about. And the reason I say this is that I got a call sometime back from an individual that's telling me that basically they felt that and it was from an Adventist church, that they felt that their musician was holding them hostage because he was demanding more money. So I started asking a few questions. I asked, well, is he dependable? Well, yes, he is. I said, well, can he read music? Well, no. I said, well, if a hymn is announced in church, because they still do hymns at this church, can he play the introduction? Does he do the refrain and usher in the congregation musically? Well, no, he doesn't play. Sometimes we start singing, then he pick it up. So I think the other right, I see the disgust on your face, Lucille. So I think one of the things that we also have to do in this bringing together a union of musicians and also the suggested pay scale is also put some accountability on us as musicians as well. Don't go there asking for $500 a week and you can't read a hymn.
Wow. Right.
Don't go ask for $350 a week and you can't play in all keys. And a lot of musicians, they're like, okay, well, I can play in all 12 keys. Okay, what about the minor keys? Okay, so you have the major, so it's a lot that goes into that, and it's great that you can do all these runs and play all these embellished chords and all of that. But what basis do you bring to the table? Because if someone gets up and start playing, and I learned this from Baptist churches when the deacons would get up and just start singing the hymn, they're all singing D flat, E flat, A flat. They got some E majors in there, some A majors, some B majors. So you have to know how to play. And sometimes they sing in minor keys. So you have to have a certain skill set that needs to be said with that as well, so that as a musician, our mindset is realistic when we go to churches and make these demands for money.
Yeah.
I did lead praise and worship today, and there was one other person. And I found that out on Tuesday. So I had to
summertime. People vacationing. People left you hanging. That's what it was.
Well, some people were out of town, other people were at camporee, and So, but the fact
Gillette is going on. That's right.
Change the entire structure of the praise and worship set, as well as the hymn meditation, because the praise team does everything. So I had to change everything. And there's some people who could not have handled that.
Yeah. I think this was a really good conversation and some things that came out that was really needed. I think this particular panel was was probably just what we need to have this conversation in regards to that because um, when you're speaking truth, I don't think that you really have to. Uh, well, maybe it's just my personality. I don't think that you have to kind of sugarcoat it, just let it come out for the most part. But I do want to ask our panelists before we go into a wrap up mode. Any final statements about this particular topic, or suggestions of how to possibly move forward, and we can just go around to each panelist to see, what your thoughts may be at this point in time.
Well, should I start? Oh.
Yes, man, please.
Good. Go ahead, Deanne.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, this has been very enlightening to hear some other perspectives, but there's a lot of similarities by me being involved with so many churches. Believe it or not, a lot of the same issues happen in a lot of the other churches. And I heard a comment about, the brother was saying, the musicians expecting to get paid $500 and $600. Well, I know musicians that get paid that, and they probably don't know. They don't read music, but this is what the churches are paying them. Where somebody that may be really qualified, they have to beg for the money, and they don't have the respect because they don't know all the chords and all the fancy stuff. So that's a problem, I think, all around in a lot of different churches. But our churches, we are very talented group of musicians. And we definitely have the talent in our church. And I just hope that in the near future, we can get the respect that we so duly deserve. And so I appreciate this platform. I appreciate you all having me on this platform. And I hope to be able to help out in some capacity in the near future. And I thank you all very much.
Thank you, Marine. Thank you. Miss Linda.
Oh, good.
Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, because I usually don't get to be part of much of anything. So, and I don't know if it's because I'm one of those ones that speaks their mind, because I figure you're gonna ask me a question, I'm gonna answer it. I'm gonna be truthful, and I'm willing to take the risk of people not necessarily liking what they hear, but I'm speaking my truth. And as a born Adventist, I feel the right to speak my truth in music because I've done it for so long. And because I see the importance of it, because our churches that grow are the ones that have the best quality music. Those are the ones that are growing. If they don't have quality music, there is no growth. And you can see it. It's evident. It is so evident. And what bothers me is that those churches don't get it. And I feel like this group, this edifice can make that happen, can help them to see the importance of it. I would be excited to see us having Adventist musician union concert where all over, we're going all over, and we're singing, we're playing, we're talking, we're workshopping, we're training, we're mentoring. I can see that happening, and I'm really excited to have been invited to this. And whether I get to be part of it or not, I thank you for this time right here, because I have enjoyed every single moment with you all.
Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you for being there. Yeah, we enjoyed you as well. Brother Paul.
Oh, it's my turn. First of all, I'm excited to be here, and this was a wonderful discussion. And also thank you for the suggestions. Everyone added so much wealth and knowledge, and thank you for that. If someone is on a church board or there's a pastor or a leader who wanted to, let me share this with you. As we're preparing for glory, we will never hear another sermon, but we will worship throughout eternity. The greatest musician was not Lucifer. Why do you say that, Brother Paul? Who taught him
Mercy.
what he knows? Who
Right.
gave him the gift? The greatest musician still exists as God himself.
Man.
Yeah.
Amen.
So please, when you are thinking about evangelism, think about music. When you're thinking about growing your church, because we do have a 20, 30-year gap of musicianship in all of our churches. And it's so evident doing Sabbath school, prayer
Right.
meeting,
Mm.
not just divine hour, not just week of prayer, if I had time.
Great. Brother Sil.
Well, what a blessing it was to spend time with you all and to meet you on this forum. This was good. I feel good. It's been a wonderful time. Glad to see all my musical brothers. And I'm gonna go back to one of the key points that matters to me a lot. You got to value yourself before anyone else values you. That's the bottom line. True professional musicians never have to sell themselves out or settle for anything. And I would also tell the next generation of which is when it comes to the next generation of musicians in the SDA church, all I can do is pray for our church because the future does not look good because our generation here took it all. We left it to God. We prayed about it. I would not dare have that conversation with my mom and dad who are deceased, but I could not talk about that with my parents. Uh, pastors' kids, the church don't have no money. Church pays you good. Church don't pay you. The Lord will provide. But I can't tell that to my kids. It's not gonna work for the next generation. And we are watching the degradation of quality music year after year in our churches. So a forum like this is extremely important and very productive. What I would encourage professional musicians to do is stop chasing big churches or watching the services at Oakwood and thinking that you're gonna do that at your church. Listen, that's a college campus where everybody would love to have access to 20,000 voices and pick the best 20 out of the 20,000. And if that was the case, none of us would be serving the church. That's just not the way it's gonna work. You'll be surprised. There are smaller churches that are striving to make mainstream that are willing to pay musicians so much more than big churches because these smaller churches have a goal. You'll be surprised. You go to a big church, especially right here in Orlando, big churches with big budget. You ain't gonna get a penny from them, but go around Pine Hills. There are very small churches willing to pay a lot more. And sometimes it may be worth investing 1 or 2 years and grow with these churches. They'll get to the point where they can't do without you, and you'll be able to command what you want. It's just a matter of valuing yourself and making the right choices. Blessings to you all.
Thank you. Brother Nova, you want to take us out, brother?
Yes,
Any
sir.
closing statement?
I just want to say, express my thanks to Brother Paul, Sister Linda, my ourselves, Sister Deanne. Of course, you, Thomas, for embracing the vision of putting it together for our Adventist church members. It is necessary. This conversation was beyond tremendous. Our intention was to educate people, not to offend anybody. So, our hope and prayer is that the topic or topics that were discussed this evening will be put into practice in some form or fashion to continue to grow and improve the music ministries in the Adventist Church. As Maestro Arcel stated, it's in dire shape, to be honest with you. So, our young people need training. Uh, Music ministries need big budgets. You can't run ministry without money. So
Right.
therefore, these are things that are dear to us, and I'm thankful that we have the platform to spread that message, and prayerfully it'll be carried out and actions will be taken, which will allow us to improve those ministries. So that is my hope and my prayer.
Great. And I would like to join in with Nerva and thank you all for joining with us on today with very insightful conversations. To those who are viewing us on the social media platform, please like our Facebook pages, and of course subscribe to the YouTube channel. We have quite a few outlets, that social media outlets that we're on now, and we're looking to add more so that we can make this platform available to as many individuals and as easily accessible as possible. So we thank you all for joining with us online, and also our guests, panelists today. Next week we will be back where we'll be discussing the various genres of music in our churches. So please look out for us next week. We'll be right back with another panel where we will discuss that. We pray that you all will have a blessed uh, remainder of the Sabbath hours, wherever you may be, if it has not already ended. And of course, your week be blessed, and we'll look forward to seeing you all right here next week. Thank you all. Panelists, thank you. Thank you all. Be blessed.
God bless.